Now we're going to be learning about typecasting and conversions. And in typecasting, we want to determine the type of a given data. Let's say we have this data. Data is equal to 20. But let's say you don't know what type of data 20 is. You can easily determine this using the type function. And to do this, I'm going to have print. And inside of the print function, I'm going to type. Then I'll provide data inside of the parentheses and then run it. Now you can see that 20 is of the class int. What this means is that 20 is an integer. If I change this to 25 and run the program, it will still give me class int. Class here has to do with object-oriented programming. In Python, everything is object. So don't worry about this. When we get to object-oriented programming, we are going to learn more about classes and objects. Now let me change this 25 to 25.0. Because of this decimal point, 25 is no longer an integer, but a float. And we can easily determine this by running this program. Of course, we have our type function here, and we have data passed into it. So I'll run it. You can see we have class float. What this means is that 25 is of the type float. So let me change this into a Boolean type. I'm going to use true. And this time around, you can see we have class bool. This means that true is a Boolean value. Then let's change it to a string. So I'm going to have my quote and a name or some text inside of the quote. This time around, we have class str. So this is string. This value is of the type string. And this leads us to type conversion. Type conversions are normally used when you want to convert a given type of data to another type. Let's say you want to convert an integer to a float, or you want to convert an integer to a string. That is where we use conversions. So here we have type conversions. And before we talk about the conversions, these are the key functions we're going to be using for these conversions. The first one is int. Int is used to convert numbers into integers. The next one is float. Float is also used to convert numbers, but this time around converting numbers into a float. And we're going to be looking at the next one, which is str. Str function is used to convert any value into a string. Let's say we have value is equal to 20, and I want to convert this value into a float. I'm going to be using the float function. But first, let me comment out this, and I'm going to have results is equal to, then I'm going to provide float, and inside of the float function, I'm going to provide value. So this is the value that I want to convert into a float. So now let's print a result. But before we display results, let's print the value so you can see the raw value before the conversion took place. So have print value. Now we can see we have 20. This is the original value, and this one is after the conversion. So after the conversion, it is now in form of a float. Now let's change this into a float. I'm going to put 20.0. And I want to convert this into an integer. To do this, I'm going to be using the int function. So here I'm going to have int, and inside of the int, I'm going to be providing the value. So let's try this out. And as you can see, this is the original value. And then after the conversion to an integer, this is the final value. So this is how we convert from float to integer. Then let me give you another example. If I have something like 20.4, let's run the program again. We'll have 20.4 and 20. And looking at these two values, you may be thinking approximation was done. No. What happens is that when you convert a float to an integer, it is going to remove the decimal part. So it's not doing any conversion. It is just stripping off the decimal part. So let me change this to 20.8. Assuming this were to be approximation, we are expected to get 21. But because we are converting to int and the int removes the decimal part, if I run this, you can see it is still 20. So this is about the int and the float functions. Now let's look at the next function, which is the str function. Str functions are used to convert maybe numbers or any value into the string equivalent. So right now we have value as 20.8. Let me quickly change it to maybe 200. And we'll have print value. The result is equal to, here I'm going to have str value. So let's run the program. Now we have 200, 200. Looking at the output, it may seem like nothing happened, but there was a conversion. So let's go ahead and determine the type for value. So here I'm going to have print type value. And here I can have print type results. So now you can see that this one is of class int, which is an integer. Then after the conversion, it is of class str, which is string. Before we end this section, it's important to know that you can as well convert a string to a number, maybe an integer or a float. But the string has to be of the numeric type. For instance, I can have value to be equal to 200. This is numeric type. So it's easy for me to convert this into an integer or float. So let me go ahead and convert to integer and float. So for this one, I'm going to have print. Here I'm going to have int value. So this one is going to convert it to an integer. So I can have an inline comment like this, conversion to int. And I'm also going to have another print statement. So here I have print, and I'll have float, then value. So let me clear all these ones. So let's see what we have. So now we have 200, which is an integer, and 200.0, which is a float. But if I change this to something like hello, of course, this value is not numeric. I'm going to run into an error. So let's try it out. And here you can see we have an error. And the reason for this is because hello is not numeric. But if I change it to 5 and I run this program, you can see we have 5 and 5.0. And the reason is simple. 5 is numeric type. It doesn't work when you have letters there, but when you have numbers there without any alphabet, it is going to work. If I have 5b, this is going to give me an error because the content is not purely numeric. But if I have 500, it is going to work because 500 is strictly numeric. Then another thing you have to keep in mind is if I try to have 50.0 and I try to convert this into an integer, this is going to fail. So let's try it out. Here you can see we'll have an error trying to convert this into an integer. But if I comment out this, of course, this value here is numeric. It is a float. So it is easy for me to convert this into a float. So if I run this program, it works perfectly. We have 50.0.